It's January, and I'm standing underneath a palm tree. Yeah. Welcome to Between the Frames. This is the first one in 2023. Pretty exciting, big deal. There's a lot happening here. It is early February, and recently on the channel I put my top figures of 2022. So if you missed that, there will be a link in the description. Might even be on the screen if I remember to do the thing where it pops up there. We'll see. A couple of things I wanted to address about that video, because there's some things that people might have felt were left out. Now, you may recall at the beginning of 2022, I started getting into Mythic Legions. None of them were on the list. Why? Well, it's honestly a justification that I made to myself was that the ones that I was buying were all previous releases, meaning that they were released, you know, a year or 2 years or whatever, like long ago, and these are just the re-release versions. So they're technically not new figures, they're just, you know, new to me because I didn't ever buy them before. So I think I only got like the Headless Horseman and the Vampire guy were the only releases from last year that I have in my collection, and they're both great, and I just may have overlooked them. So, you know, to anybody who was personally offended and hurt by this, I sincerely apologize. Not surprisingly, you know who else wasn't on that list, best figures of the year? That's right, Mezco, 89 Batman. And I know this is Batman Returns and this is 92, not 89, but it's Michael Keaton, it's Batman, you know what I'm talking about. We're at the point now where this is over 3 years of a pre-order, and Toying Around has done a much better job of celebrating the 3-year pre-order than I did, but you know, it doesn't mean I can't mention it. It certainly bears mentioning. January 15th, 2020, I pre-ordered that figure. There's been a whole pandemic since then. It's a whole lot of stuff has gone on. I think we're at the point now where this is probably the longest action figure pre-order that I would be able to name in history. I don't know if there's any that have been longer than this that actually have come out. You know, somebody let me know. We've reached the point where this Batman pre-order is longer than any relationship I've ever been in my life. I don't know if that says more about Mezco or me, but you know, whatever. It's a long time is all I'm saying. So, you know, at this point, just let it go 5 years. See what happens, you know? Let's go for a 10-year pre-order. And then by the time this figure comes out, like, nobody will care anymore. Been busy lately, too. I actually just got back earlier this previous week from a work trip. I went to Florida, Ocala, Florida, to be specific. So we just got here a little while ago. Stopped at the warehouse. And guess we're working today. Would have been good to know that ahead of time, because I'm running about 3 hours sleep right now. Let's see how this goes. It was a lot of hours, a lot of work, but I did have a little bit of time to, you know, just free time, you know? And I tried to take care of myself during that free time. Went to the beach one day with some coworkers. It was great, it was awesome. That was the Gulf Coast, I think it was. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know much about Florida or where I am at any given moment. But when you're traveling with work and they're paying for all your food bills and stuff, you know what you gotta do. You gotta take care of yourself. What did I do? I went to the BFG. Not the Doom BFG, this BFG. Walk right on in there. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna need a beer while I look at the menu. And then I got my little appetizer, and they brought me my steak and my shrimp and all of it. And I was having a good time. It was nice. But now I'm back in Albany. It's Fimble winter outside right now. And we're, you know, just going over some different things in this episode of Between the Frames. We got some new dioramas. I'm gonna open a couple of figures because, you know, Ernesto, I saw your comment on the last one. And yes, I am behind. So we're gonna get those X-Men figures open because, you know, I've been slacking. Got a couple new Ninja Turtle dioramas I'm going to show off, so hopefully you enjoy that stuff. And, you know, just little bits here and there that hopefully you may find interesting. So with all that out of the way, let's roll. Alright, got a brand new diorama that I'm going to put on the Ninja Turtles shelf. This one I made for the cartoon Ninja Turtles. It's basically just like a street scene. I wanted to do something different than the usual kind of like brick building I do, or like gray concrete building. So I decided to go for like a really bright colored, kind of like pastel animated looking environment. I do like how it came out. I tried a couple different things with this. The street, the sidewalk is actually, well, it's basically in two halves right now, but every one of these long, like, you know, sidewalk pieces is actually like separate. So I cut it all apart and then I just assembled them again and glued them all back together because I wanted to give it some kind of like variation. I didn't want it to just be completely flat. I wanted it to be more like a, you know, like a sidewalk. While I do like how it looks, it doesn't quite balance correctly because I didn't glue it to like a flat piece underneath. So, you know, every one of these that has any variance in depth, it's the same underneath it, which means you're not really putting it down flat, you know what I mean? You know, you live and learn. I'll probably just glue it to a flat piece of cardboard and just, you know, fix it that way. But I got a couple of movie posters in there. That's Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and of course that's Dancer. So what I did with the posters is I actually put them inside of like top loaders, like for trading cards. Let's see if I can get this off without ruining everything. There we go. So you see there, that's a strip of like magnetic tape. It's not, well, I don't know if it's really tape, but it's like double-sided, and it's just a magnetic strip that you can just kind of stick things there. And I put another one on here, and this one I've written R on the back because it goes on the right side, and I did the same thing on that one too. So whatever poster you print, you can put in this thing and then just put right in here, and it should just stick right to the wall like that. So pretty cool. I printed a 1989 Batman poster too, so you can put that in there if you want. Whatever, you know, like I say, whatever you want. The top like marquee, I guess, is just a piece of corrugated plastic with like long strips of, I think this is like balsa wood or something, I'm not 100% sure, painted black. So I painted obviously the plastic part white, and then I just cut letters out of like the really thin sheets of foam that I showed before, and just, you know, pretty much brought it together. Not too much left to the imagination here. It's a pretty straightforward build, but it looks cool. It pops. I like the colors. Just something about this color scheme, just, you know, it seems like it's going to work for the animated turtles. So this thing isn't actually like magnetized down, like the walls in the back are not like magnetized to the street. It does support its own weight, it's pretty stable, but also what I did here was these garbage cans. These are separate pieces, and I used the same magnetic tape kind of gimmick like I used with the posters, so it just stays in place. But they also serve a purpose. See, they hide the battery compartment. So the reason this isn't magnetized is so you can lean it back and flip the switch, and you'll end up illuminating your poster. Yeah, now that's not bad, right? If there was one minor thing that I would probably change about this is, in addition to doing these lights, I may go back and do this also, but I would actually cut out a piece of the wall and leave it so that it could be backlit too, so that way the light actually shined through the poster as opposed to just around it, because around it makes it so it almost draws your eye away from the poster and the poster looks dark by contrast. But overall, I think this looks pretty good, and you know, I can't wait to get some figures on it once it gets inside the shelf. And there we got it on the shelf. Looking pretty decent. I got the lights on here. Probably gonna try and do something to fill in like the sides there, just so it's not like a white shelf right there. Let me get the trading cards out of the way. But yeah, I moved a couple figures around, so here's what we're dealing with down here. Looks like you know, Smash here is kind of pleading. Rocksteady got all the crooked Ninja Turtles beat up, and then Bebop kind of getting chewed out by Krang here. Krang obviously telling them like these are not the real turtles. You guys just beat up a bunch of imposters. You're failures. You're wasting my time. And so Rocksteady's still having trouble figuring it out, I guess, that these are not actually the turtles. So yeah, I don't know. I thought this was cool, and as soon as I figured out I wanted a little street scene, something a little out of the ordinary, just for like my crooked Ninja Turtle gang, I thought this turned out pretty good. And of course you got the foot soldiers posing as street cops, so you know, very convincing disguises there. He's got a pretty long spear there, which is a standard police issue, I imagine. But yeah, looking pretty good. You'll see here I actually switched out my smaller sewer display on the bottom too. Now I always had the Style Guide turtles down here with Splinter, but usually they were like kind of just looking at a book or something. But I switched those out with the, what is it, the Haulathon box set. So it's the same Style Guide turtles, but they all just have the interchangeable faces and everything this time. I kind of got like a little story going on here. Like, I don't know, sometimes I just like to have small little, you know, moments in history kind of captured on my shelf. And I guess this isn't actual history, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just kind of a self-contained little story here. I imagine something like, you know, Raphael and Leonardo probably at each other's throats, and Splinter's like, listen, you guys need to understand each other better, so I'm making you use each other's weapons. So That way you'll have a better grasp on what the other guy's doing. So of course I got Leonardo kind of looking at Raphael's side like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Like, this doesn't do anything for me. And Raphael got the katana blade like, are you like compensating, bro? Come on. So I imagine these two will probably not get over their issues very easily, but they're going to be kind of forced to try here with each other's weapons. And then, speaking of weapons, you got Donatello in the back, kind of always looking to the future, playtesting whatever weapon that thing is on his arm. That's actually one of the things that came with Fugitoid. But, I don't know, I thought it looked cool with the cartoon turtles, and he's always all about his gadgets and technology, so, you know, while Raphael and Leonardo are swapping weapons, Donatello's looking to the future and creating weapons. And then you got Michelangelo. He's not concerned with anybody else's weapons, he just wants his own. He likes what he's already got, he's used to it, he's happy with it. Something to be said about the simplicity of that. So yeah, I like this display now. It's just kind of a little interesting piece of a story that's being told here, I guess, in one little spot on my shelf. I got Metalhead back there still vacuuming. Those are those little backdrops that you see like between the sewer openings. Those are just like from the inserts, the packaging that came with these figures. So I just use those for, like, you know, if you want to put some depth to your display, you can do that. And then that up there is just one of those lights from Big Lots. I just stuck it in there to illuminate it for this, because otherwise you wouldn't see anything. So since I moved Bebop and Rocksteady, I've actually changed up my Technodrome display a little bit. So right now you got like kind of Shredder and Krang and a couple foot soldiers. And it looks like they're in the middle of some kind of like an arms deal or something with Trag. And he's got some moves maybe they're interested in, or some kind of Dimension X, you know, antidote to some mutation, or who knows what we're doing here. But, you know, since I used the what do you call it, the Crooked Ninja Turtle army builders, I had a bunch of the Rock Soldier ones too, so I put them in to kind of fill in the ranks. So Granitor and Trag got their boys, Shredder and Krang got theirs. So yeah, the Neutrinos back there peeking in from Dimension X into the portal, you know, kind of hidden, making their presence, you know, as scarce as possible here. And of course, this is all going on. They're oblivious to the fact they're being spied on. Except this guy. He knows something's up. Maybe he spotted them. Meanwhile, you got the Neutrinos with the communicator, maybe filling the turtles in on what's going on. And interestingly, I didn't actually mean for this to connect, but this Donatello up here has always had a communicator. So, I don't know, maybe these two scenes are happening at the same time, and Donatello's like, hey, what's going on over in Dimension X? But meanwhile, you know, they're having issues of their own. So Leonardo, from within the window there, he sees Anthrax and Scumbug out here fighting with Muckman and Joe Eyeball. And then, of course, on the inside, I still got Michelangelo frantically trying to eat as much pizza as he can, while Raphael's like, dude, we gotta go. Like, just eat it later. So I like this. I mean, it's a little bit of kind of synergy, I guess, going through, like a little bit of consistent storytelling where this is going on at the same time as this now, and, you know, everybody's in different places. You got this diorama that's still just kind of holding strong. I haven't really changed anything about that one in a while. Then my new one down there, now that I turned all the lights off and moved everything, you can't really see it, but, you know, the cinema. And then down there I still got the newsroom on the floor, as well as the one I just showed with kind of that little self-contained little story about unity, I guess, or whatever that's about. I don't know. You tell me what it's about. The turtle shelf continues to evolve, I suppose. Or mutate, I guess, if you want to call it that, if you want to be a nerd like me. Something I got in before I left for my Florida trip. This is actually a Kickstarter I was a part of. This is the Beast of the Mesozoic series, Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is the 1/35th scale, I believe. Yeah, 1/35th scale. So they've done like a 1/18th scale one as well, which is massive. So like I went with the smaller one just because I wanted to, you know, I wanted to support the line, and T-Rex is my favorite dinosaur, so of course I had to get it, but I didn't quite want something that was going to take up entirely too much space. So I went with this one. You've seen Beast of the Mesozoic on my channel before. I used the Styracosaurus in the fight with Kong, and I've shown some of the Raptor series ones that I've got as well. So excited to have this. I'm going to get them open, as well as the Toad and Apocalypse that I showed in my top figures of last year video, top figures of 2022, that, you know, unfortunately I just haven't opened yet. So I'm looking forward to opening these. They totally just kind of went by the wayside for me when I was doing that video, because I just completely forgot that they were out there. And who knows, they might have made it on the list if I hadn't, you know, just totally forgotten about them. Got them open. Must say, I like them. Toad is a character that I've never really had. Like the original Toad was like the first series of Toy Biz Marvel Legends, and that one barely moved. So I don't think I was even collecting Marvel Legends at that point when that first series came out. So I didn't get him. But this new one, I like it. I mean, it's kind of like a amalgamation of a few different looks for Toad, but I think it fits. Actually, his little frill things on his wrists, they should be facing the other way, like facing toward his hands, but I switched them around when I switched the hands just to be able to get a little bit more expression out of the hands, because, you know, with those like frill things in the way, like you see how his shoes are, they would be over his gloves, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to see his gesturing hands. But he's got a nice little evil looking grin on him. And then there's the alternate head, which has the tongue sticking out. Yeah, there's a good look at that. I like it. Toad has a wicked tongue, Senator. Like you. And then we got the big man, Apocalypse. He's in kind of like his pastel purple and blue, which is not unlike my movie theater I just painted, honestly. But he's kind of in the same color scheme as the X-Men animated series, but he's not in that VHS series that Hasbro was doing with like the cell shading and stuff, which makes me like this better, because I'm not huge on the cell shaded look for those figures. I don't know, there's just a uniformity to Marvel Legends that I kind of like that they've been doing, and the cell shading kind of stands out. It's not like NECA with the Ninja Turtles where they're all cell shaded, because that, you know, it doesn't bother me there. It's like an all or nothing thing. But he does have this like swap out giant gun thing with like removable like blast effects and stuff, which is really cool. I like it. But other than that, the figure is not quite as like detailed as previous Apocalypse figures. I think it's just down to the paint. Like a little wash would have gone a long way here, and maybe some like just highlights on the boots, or maybe like on the inner body there, because like he does look very flat, I guess is the right word. It's not bad, it's just, you know, there's not a lot bringing out the detail of the figure, is what I'm saying. But I do like this head sculpt a lot. This is actually like kind of a more straight faced look, because I believe this is the same as the Build-A-Figure from a couple years ago. So having a new head sculpt that's like the classic standard Apocalypse, that's just kind of more, you know, kind of complacent head sculpt, more contemplative, more, I don't know, plotting and scheming. And it does look like the head sculpts this time around have a little bit of shading on them too. So where the figure itself doesn't, the faces do. So I definitely appreciate that. They look nice. Had to dig out some older figures. This is the Age of Apocalypse one, the deluxe figure from a couple years ago. This is the Build-A-Figure from that series of X-Men with like Tiger Stripe Wolverine. There was the black costume Magneto. There was, I think Jim Lee Sabretooth was in this one, Multiple Man, a few others. And then there was the Toy Biz, the old school Marvel Legends series like 7, I think, figure from like years and years ago. So here they all are. Obviously, a lot of differences between all these figures. This one is totally on its own because it's sculpted like completely differently. Like if you go back and remember, Toy Biz did a lot more like sculpt detail on each individual figure. There wasn't a lot of like part reuse. So he's totally doing his own thing. This one is like a very dark, you know, color scheme, blue and black, very glossy, very, you know, mechanical looking, I guess, which, I mean, it fits. It's a great color scheme. A lot of the parts were used for the newer version, and I did switch the heads, by the way. And what I like that I didn't actually notice before is, if you'll notice, the pupils are painted like yellow, so he's kind of got red eyes with like the yellow pupils, and that's really good. But yeah, there's a little bit of a disconnect between the way his head is painted, so detailed, and then the rest of the body just kind of being like very, very flat, I guess. You don't notice it as much on this one because while it is just very two-tone, it's very glossy. So it just reflects and captures light way differently. And kind of the same with the AOA version. Like, he's a little more muted and he's brighter colored, but he is still very glossy. So you do reflect light off of him a lot more. So this new one is probably the plainest design of Apocalypse, but he's also probably the most, well, if I had to guess, he's currently probably the most accessible and most affordable version of regular Apocalypse, because I know the Build-A-Figure was expensive, and that's a totally alternate reality, and I don't know if anybody's actually actively trying to track this one down anymore, because these are probably better in a lot of people's minds. There is a Marvel Select one coming out that's closer to the color scheme of this one, I want to say. So, I don't know, if you're not into the bright purple and blue, you could probably wait for that, but I like it. I like how he does have the extra heads. I like his giant cannon with the, you know, blast effects and everything. I also didn't bust out my Toy Biz Build-A-Figure because that would be like up over, like his chest would be at the top of the frame right here, and it wouldn't make any sense to compare them. But I do have that figure somewhere. He's very nice too. But I think he's kind of more of a standalone like display piece in a lot of people's collections as opposed to like a, you know, like a figure that you would display or whatever. But yeah, so here's all the Apocali that I have in my collection besides the old Toy Biz Build-A-Figure. And then we got Toad down front. He's just posing for the cover of his new mixtape. It's gonna be fire. So here's the T-Rex out of package. I do like this. This is, it's kind of like a NECA Godzilla figure or gargoyle or something where you have to plug the tail in, so you might need to like heat that up. I definitely had the hot water going on them. But the paintwork on these figures is always really clean. So these aren't like super hyper posable, but they do get enough range of motion out of them. Like you get a couple joints in the neck. This neck overlay is actually just a floating piece, so like when you move the head and stuff, the neck kind of stays static. So once you pose around that, that's not too bad. He does, obviously, his jaw opens up. What good is a T-Rex if, you know, he can't bite you? Yeah, I do like that. One thing I did notice is his legs from the knee down don't actually bend at all. So those are the ones that come on the figure out of the box. He actually does have a completely separate set of legs, which do have posable feet, posable, I don't know what you would even call this. I guess it's an ankle-ish joint, whatever you want to call it. And those are kind of used for the more dynamic poses if you want to do that. So it's really cool. You can just switch these legs out. If you kind of want them in a static standing pose, leave them right in. But if you want them to be a little bit more dynamic, swap these out and see what you think. Because he's also got different feet too. He's got like kind of like closed toe, more narrow looking feet. And he's got like tiptoe, like running feet basically, where he's like kind of, you know, like in a sprint or whatever. So that's really cool. He also comes with his base, which is a, all these pieces of Mesozoic figures come with these. He's got like the little metal pegs on it, so if you want to plug the figure in and stand him up on the base, go for it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Got the other legs on them so you can pose them around a little more. I put like kind of the tiptoed foot on the back, and then I just left one of the flat feet on the front. And man, he poses pretty nicely. Even though, like I said, it's not like a ton of articulation points, you can still flex him pretty decently. The last segment of his tail there is, it's actually a bendy wire. And then the middle one is a little flexible too. I don't know if it's like a wire in there, but it doesn't move like a ton. But either way, I'm happy with this. I like this guy a lot. So the legs popped off actually super easy too. So I wasn't fighting with the legs. You just pretty much pop them off at the knee, and then these pop straight up in. So quick, painless. The only thing that I wish was different is that the static legs that don't really move are the only ones with peg holes in the feet to be able to stand on his base. All the other ones don't have that, as you can see. So that's a little unfortunate, but I guess, you know, it's really not that big a deal, honestly. And now it's time to see something that I've been curious about since they announced this figure. So here's one of the NECA Kongs I got off the shelf, and if I'm being totally honest, I think the T-Rex is a little small to go with this Kong, but you might be able to use different Kongs for this. Let me see. So here's the SH Monster Arts Peter Jackson Kong, and now we're getting warmer. I think this size works pretty well. So if you remember that 2005 King Kong movie that Peter Jackson did, it's pretty close to the scale that Kong was fighting the V-Rexes in that movie. So I think this might be your best bet. And here's the Mezco 7-inch King Kong of Skull Island figure. And this actually isn't bad either. I do think that the Peter Jackson SH Monster Arts looks a little bit closer scale-wise, but these two definitely work. I think the NECA is slightly large for this T-Rex, but these two look pretty good together. And the SH Monster Arts, I'll bring him back in. This is probably the best as far as scaling out of the Kong figures that I have. I didn't bring in like the Monsterverse SH Monster Arts Kong because that's meant to be like kaiju sized, like he's as tall as a building, not as tall as like original Kong. And while the figure is smaller than this one, it would probably look good with that T-Rex. I would know it was wrong, it would hurt my eyes to look at it, and I wouldn't dare do that to any of my lovely viewers. And so here he is with the Styracosaurus. Now this is a 1/18th scale Styracosaurus compared to a 1/35th scale T-Rex. So obviously the T-Rex is much smaller than he should be, but I just wanted to give you an idea of like how good these figures do look together. Like obviously the paintwork on all these is really good. So if I did actually have the 1/18 scale T-Rex, he would be in correct scale with this figure here, and it would probably be much larger than my camera frame would allow. So for that reason, I'm glad I got the smaller one. But yeah, overall, really happy with this. I think it's cool, and the paintwork is nice. The articulation is pretty good and gets enough poses for me to enjoy it. And, you know, I'm just a big T-Rex guy, so happy about this. So here's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time now, and I'm finally getting around to it. It's a like a teleporter. It's about 10 inches across and 10 inches, well, I mean 10 inches across both ways, I guess, and 2-ish inches tall, because it's 2 layers of the insulation foam that I use stacked on top of each other, with like some thin foam layers that are kind of like meant to do this like paneling effect, just to give it some, you know, technology looking texture and stuff, and there's some like knitting grid and stuff in there to get it really kind of looking pretty cool in my opinion. And then some of those like do-it-yourself straws for like the little mechanical components. Not too much on this side. This is like kind of what I meant to be like the back, but I did want to do it 360 just in case I ever decided that I wanted to show it from like a different angle or whatever. So basically this was like assembled and painted. I think I want to say I painted it totally gray first, like a really dark kind of like stone gray. Couple layers of that, and then I started going over it with lighter and lighter dry brush shades of like silver, and then eventually like adding white to the silver to kind of like just bring out some of the detail and stuff, because I wanted it to look like a worn piece of like machinery that had been getting used for a really long time. So here's how we look so far. You may notice that this piece is actually removable. I did that for a reason. Let's show you why. You can see in there I put a rotating display base, and I wanted it to be able to be accessed like just without having to take the whole thing up and over the base. So I just decided like a little removable front door would be fine for that. And then when you put it back in like that, you just have essentially like a rotating base inside of my my teleporter, which I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. I also cut out this piece of, what is this, like knitting grid. It's not a perfect circle, but it fits on top there. So if you don't want the mirrored effect, if you just want it to look like, I don't know, some kind of like mesh machinery looking thing, you can do that too. So the reason I wanted to do this is actually inspired by the cover for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #4. I believe it's #4. More famously, I think it's the cover for the old NES game. And let's see how they look. Alright, not bad. Here's like a old laboratory diorama I built some time ago. It's kind of meant to be like an X-Men war room, but that's kind of the most like tech looking dio that I have at hand right now, so that's what I put this into. I'm very happy with this. You can kind of like emulate the poses from that comic book cover that I was talking about there before. You can get these turtles looking fairly authentic in their comic book poses, but what's cool about this is because this is a 360 rotating base, you can, you know, they don't have to all be facing the same direction like they were on the cover of the comic book, because you're not only going to be looking at it from one perspective. So yeah. Alright, well the battery in this thing doesn't actually charge, so I'm going to need a new battery, which means I'm going to have to kind of like leave this piece off for the time being. But I do have one of these little like power cell things that you can just plug the USB cable into and do that. I turned Leonardo and Michelangelo around, and I opened my Utrom robot guys. I got the display kind of a little bit more filled in here. Let's see, let's moment of truth this bad boy, huh? Yeah! Alright, yeah, I could just sit here and watch this for a minute. I don't know how entertaining this is for you, but this is very entertaining for me. So yeah, I mean, these Utrom guys are actually a lot of fun too. If you're not familiar with the Mirage books, the Utrom species, like the little Krang looking guys, they inspired Krang, but they're not like necessarily bad guys. They're just like aliens that are on Earth because they're stranded, and as a result they've kind of had a lot of they're basically responsible for like the things like the ooze and TCRI, which would create the turtles obviously. So in the books, when the turtles find these guys, they end up getting transported off-world into the Triceraton world and all that kind of stuff. So that's just a little side note. I'm kind of rambling here. The point is, these figures are actually really, really cool. I like these guys. I got 2 of them from Big Bad, and if I see a 3rd one, I'll probably pick it up, because, I don't know, it would just look cool. I don't think this is going to be the permanent display, because this is kind of my like X-Men War Room diorama, and it's a little small to fit on the shelves that I have. but I would like to do something a little more permanent because I do like this a lot. So as I listen closely, I can hear the rotating base kind of like rubbing up against like the inside of that, which makes me think the corner piece of this cutaway thing that I made that sits on the top is like kind of scraping against the inside of that. So it's not totally flush, so maybe I'll just kind of trim that up, but otherwise it fits pretty well. And let's get a look at that detail again. I like how this thing looks, man. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. This is kind of the coolest thing that I've made in a while, in my opinion. And yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it on like permanent display or anything yet. I still have to, like I said, I gotta get a battery for this, so that way I can just put this piece back in front and it won't be totally like, you know, missing a big chunk of the thing. But besides that, yeah, I'd like to build kind of a bigger, more permanent like lab display. I don't even necessarily need the Mirage Turtles on here. Like I could put like the 2012, the Revoltex on there, and kind of put the maybe the cartoon turtles in there with them, because like they've had crossover episodes and stuff, so maybe, you know, one of those universes crosses over into the other one because of this teleporter thing. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud and thinking about displays that I'll probably get around to at some point. But yeah, very happy with this. Damn. I'm gonna turn the camera off now, but then I'm probably just gonna stand here and watch this thing turn for a little while until this runs out. You know, it's always a dream getting a new episode of Between the Frames started, but it's always a nightmare when it ends. And, you know, I'm sorry to put you through that. I shouldn't put that in, that's dumb. Thanks for watching Between the Frames. Hopefully you enjoyed the dioramas and some of the stuff that I showed off. I had a lot of fun making all this stuff, especially that turtles, like, rotating, you know, teleporter-based thing. I look forward to figuring out what I want to do with that on a more permanent display. Don't really know yet, but, you know, it'll come to me at some point. Might end up on a shelf back here somewhere. Eventually, who knows. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I especially want to thank these fine people right here. That's right, you know who they are. They're the Patreon people. They back me on there, and you know, they get to see some extra stuff here and there, a little JWF Revisited, little stop motion stuff before it's, you know, hitting the channel, work in progress, all of it, you know. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out. Got some stuff coming down the pipeline, little animation projects here and there, some you know about, some maybe you don't. So until we meet again, my name is Captain McKay. You can follow me on social media if you want. I'm posting nonsense a lot, but it's fun. Thank you as always for watching. If you want to hit thumbs up on your way out and the bell and whatever all that kind of stuff is the YouTube people have to ask you for, feel free, and hopefully we'll see you next time. All right, later on.
That's crispy.